One thing that women tell me they constantly struggle with when it comes to nutrition is consistently putting together quick, simple, and easy meals that are nutrient dense and actually meet their protein, fiber, and micronutrient goals. And honestly, as someone who has struggled with overthinking and decision fatigue when it comes to my own health, I love sharing these what I eat in a week to show you guys how I consistently put together high fiber, high protein, nutrient dense meals that I actually love and enjoy. And if you're brand new here, hello, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. My name's Claire. I'm a naturopathic doctor and I've been on my own health journey for over a decade. I've also worked with hundreds of women in my clinical practice, and my goal is to help you guys feel more educated and empowered when it comes to your health, and ultimately to help you feel like you're working with your body and not against it. So if that is something you're interested in, definitely click the subscribe button and let's just get right into the video. One thing about me is that I love to have the same breakfast every morning, and I go through phases. My breakfast will definitely shift throughout the year, but I can go weeks or even months with having the same breakfast, and this is one that I have been having on repeat. I do really try and have 20 to 30 grams of protein and 7 to 10 grams of fiber at all of my meals, and this is just a breakfast that really easily allows me to meet those goals. So I just take some pressed cottage cheese, match it with some avocado, and I put that on some whole wheat sourdough that I get from a local bakery. And then I always like to have hard-boiled eggs on hand. I just find they're a really easy protein source. And then I also add whatever seasonal fruit I have. So here I did some raspberries. Between the cottage cheese and the eggs, you have tons of protein. Between the avocado, berries, and sourdough bread, there's lots of fiber, and it takes me less than 5 minutes to put together because if the eggs are boiled, I really don't have to do any sort of cooking. My latest lunch obsession. It's also gluten and dairy free, just in case you are gluten and dairy free. This can be a great either breakfast or lunch option, but I saw this on Instagram. But you basically just take ground meat, press it onto a corn tortilla, and then cook it on the pan, and it has been so easy. So I just took some ground beef, I put it on these corn tortillas. I like these because they have really simple ingredients. Sometimes hard to find corn tortillas nowadays that don't have some sort of binder, but I just cook those on my stainless steel pan. And then for fillings, I have been loving broccoli microgreens. I've been having these on repeat. I love it as a veggie option that you don't have to cook. They're also super high in sulforaphane, so they're great for helping with natural liver support and detoxification, and they're also really high in vitamin C. They're also a bitter vegetable, so great for stimulating digestion and helping to support the liver. I also add some avocado. You guys know I basically add avocado to every meal because it's a great source of monounsaturated fat, and it's a really great source of fiber as well. That has been my latest lunch obsession. Moving on to dinner, I had some leftover salmon from the weekend, and you guys know one of my favorite combos is salmon and broccoli. I always like to do frozen broccoli. I just find it's a lot easier than fresh, and I always prepare it the same way. So I will just dry roast the broccoli in the oven for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees just to let it thaw and let the excess water evaporate, and then I'll season it with avocado oil, garlic powder, and salt. Throw it back in until it's cooked, and then I just warmed up the leftover salmon on the stove. And I also had some leftover sweet potatoes, which I ended up just having cold because I like cold sweet potatoes. I don't know, something about the texture. These are also Japanese sweet potatoes, which I much prefer over the classic orange sweet potatoes. Of course, I also topped it off with some tahini, and then I just had some dates and peanut butter for dessert. Moving on to Tuesday, I had to leave pretty early to go to clinic, so I just wanted something super quick and easy. And I am trying to get a little bit of variety, just to show you guys a little bit of options. I also live by myself, so I tend to use the same ingredients, but just try and use them in slightly different ways. I just scrambled some eggs on my stainless steel. And I have been doing the water test on my stainless steel, and I do really find that it helps with making sure that it is non-stick. And then I just mashed up some cottage cheese and avocado, put that on top. So again, between the 2 eggs and the cottage cheese, you have lots of protein. If you're dairy free, you could always just add more egg whites or more eggs. Added some broccoli microgreens on top, and then had some berries on the side. And then for lunch, I always get home in the early afternoons from clinic and I want something quick and easy. And lately I have been loving sardines. I've been getting back into them. I do really try and include them in my diet on a regular basis because they are such a superfood. They're high on omega-3s. I get them with bone-in, so they're pretty high in calcium. They're also high in zinc and vitamin D. We're all just a very nutrient-dense food and also really budget-friendly. So I just put those on some Ezekiel English muffins, mashed some avocado, topped it off with some broccoli microgreens and a little bit of olive oil and sea salt. I say if you don't like the taste of sardines, try dressing them with olive oil and sea salt because I do really find that it makes a difference for the taste. And that was a very quick and easy lunch. Dinner, this is another one of my staple meals. I really do just have meals that I have on repeat that I know I like. I know I have all the ingredients in my fridge. I know I can put them together pretty quickly. I like to do little sweet potato sliders. So I just have these sweet potatoes. I've cooked these in other videos. I think actually if you go back to my most recent video, I made these sweet potatoes. So I will link that video, but I just warm up some of the sweet potatoes as my little buns. I smash some burgers on my pan and then I just had it with some avocado and broccoli microgreens, and they make these little burger sliders. They're so delicious. And then of course I just had some dates and peanut butter for dessert. So lately I've been getting back into having the Ezekiel English muffins. I feel like I've been sleeping on these, but I actually think that they taste pretty good and they're super high in fiber and they actually have a decent amount of protein. I think for one English muffin, they have 6 grams of fiber. So when you think about trying to get to 7 to 10 grams of fiber, they can really help out with that. They also have about 8 grams of protein, which is pretty good considering that they're not the main protein source of the meal. They're also a really great option if you don't have a local bakery where you can find good quality sourdough. Usually you have to look in the freezer section, but I like these because they are sprouted, so they're a little bit easier on the digestive system. I just topped mine off with some cottage cheese and avocado and then added what I call my lazy girl scramble, which is just a mashed up medium or hard boiled egg. And then for lunch, I just had more of my kind of ground beef tacos, I guess you would call them. Moving on to dinner, I made some of my tempeh spring rolls. I'm trying to have these as much as possible because I know once the weather gets colder, I won't want to have them. I really just eat these in the spring and summer, but I just prepped some tempeh. I always make this the same way. I just marinate it in some tamari garlic powder and maple syrup. I let that marinate for anywhere between 30 minutes to overnight, and then I just bake it in the oven at about 350 for 20 minutes. I let it cool down, and then it's great to have on hand. It's such an easy protein source. You can use it in other dishes as well. But of course, I like to make spring rolls. I usually do the tempeh, avocado, carrots, and then some sort of greens, usually a spring mix. I like using the spring mixes just because they'll usually have anywhere between 7 to 10 different types of greens in them. So again, a really easy way to increase the diversity of plants in your diet, especially if you're like me and you eat the same meals on repeat or you live by yourself. It can be a little bit hard to get variety in your diet, and that's where I love using things like spring mixes or veggie mixes or even the Ezekiel English muffins. They actually have a lot of different whole grains in them. So a great way to get a little bit of diversity, which of course our gut loves. Our gut loves diversity, polyphenols, and fiber. And I just had that with some of my peanut sauce. Again, I always have some of this peanut sauce on hand because it is so delicious. Sometimes I feel like I could just drink this peanut sauce. And that was my dinner. So this video is coming out at the end of August, and August and early September is the only time I'm ever able to find green figs at the grocery store. They are probably my favorite fruit of all time. So if you are still watching this and it's early September, maybe even mid-September, go and see if you can find green figs. Anyway, I just had another English muffin. That's also honey. I like the sweet and salty combo. Added some cottage cheese, avocado, a fried egg, and had my figs on the side, and that was breakfast. Later in the day, I made another batch of my peanut sauce. I'll put all the ingredients up on the screen, but I think I've made this in almost every video this summer. So I'm sure you guys are getting sick of it. You can use it in spring rolls, but you can also use it as a dressing. You can use it in bowls in the winter. Sometimes I'll use it as a sauce on a noodle dish with some shiitake mushrooms, tofu, tempeh, shrimp, something like that. It is so good. I did have to go into work for a lunch meeting, so I just made a few of these spring rolls. One thing I will say is that if you are going to take these to go and you're not going to eat them for a few hours, they do tend to start to fall apart. I knew that I was going to eat them within the hour, so I wasn't too worried about them starting to get soggy and kind of falling apart, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the best for meal prep or making the morning if you know that you're going to eat them 5 or 6 hours later. I ran out of my spring mix, so I just used some more of the broccoli microgreens and took that with me. Thursday evenings, me and my boyfriend will always do salmon, broccoli, and sweet potato for dinner, but he was out of town this week. He was actually at a powerlifting competition in Quebec. So I was on my own, but I was still feeling the salmon, broccoli, and sweet potatoes. There's something about having the same dinner every Thursday that just somehow grounds my week. So I just made up, no, I don't even think I made up more of the broccoli. I think that was leftover broccoli that I still had from Monday. I had some salmon, sweet potatoes. Of course, I topped it off with tahini. The tahini and Japanese sweet potato combo is very, very good, but the tahini is also great on the broccoli as well. And then I had some dates and peanut butter for dessert. And then I had to leave super early on Friday morning to go into the clinic. So I wasn't super hungry, but I knew that I had a full morning of patients and that if I didn't eat something, I would be hungry and really tired halfway through. So I just made a really quick yogurt bowl. I've been really liking doing the skyr. It has the same amount of protein as Greek yogurt. I just find it to be a little less tangy. And I always like to mix my collagen in with my yogurt. I definitely don't eat collagen every day, but if I have a yogurt bowl, I'll just add it in. I also did some banana, raspberries. I've been loving this bran cereal. Again, it's got a ton of fiber. And then I also added some hemp seeds, cacao nibs, and peanut butter. So really just a little superfood bowl. There's so much magnesium, fiber, micronutrients, polyphenols, all of those good things. That kept me full all through my morning of patients. And then I came home and I wanted something super quick and easy for lunch. So I just made up more of the ground beef tacos. since my boyfriend was out of town, he obviously wasn't there for Friday dinner, but honestly, I was really excited to have a weekend to myself. I feel like I hadn't had a weekend alone to chill since before Italy, because we came back from Italy on a Sunday night, and then the following weekend I went up to a friend's cottage for the weekend. So I was really ready for just a very chill weekend, and I didn't really feel like cooking anything on Friday, so I just made more of the spring rolls. But that does bring us to the end of the video. I feel like this was a very repetitive video. I'm not sure how much variety was in there. It's also okay if your meals are a little bit repetitive, especially if you live by yourself. I used to think that every meal had to be really elaborate and different for it to be healthy, and that's totally not the case. I think sometimes we can get a little bit trapped in scrolling Pinterest looking for new and exciting recipes, and sometimes it's okay to just go back to the staples. I'm definitely excited for fall. I feel like my meals will change in the coming months. You guys know I tend to eat very seasonally, both in the foods that I eat. I try and pick seasonal produce, but then also in the way that I'm preparing it. I'm excited for all the fall produce, and I'm excited for more soup, stews, skillets, more cooked foods. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments, as always, what you guys want to see more of, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!